Well, guys, people are so fucked up when it comes to affirmations and what to be saying and what I should not be saying, and is there a set thing I have to say, that I'm just making this video to hopefully clarify for you that the way you say an affirmation or a conscious autosuggestion does not have to be overcomplicated, and the way that most people talk about it on YouTube is just utter bullshit. And stop listening to that advice. Listen to the advice I'm about to read to you today, and the way I explain it. It'll probably help more. If you don't know who I am, my name's Tim. I have made over 100 videos talking about how to better utilize things like affirmations and self-talk. You can get a free book of mine in the link below in the description. You also are welcome to join my mailing list. If you get that free book, you'll also be part of my mailing list, so you can find out more about how to actually utilize these tools in a way that works for you. I don't even know in a way where to begin with this one. We're just going to jump right into it, guys. People are dumb when it comes to affirmations. And even I'm dumb, because I, like all of you, hear all this information about you have to say something a certain way. Things have to be done in a set period of time. There's a certain way to say something. And all that's basically fucking nonsense. If you're familiar with this channel at all, you probably have heard me talk about this book, Christianity and Autosuggestion. This book is a book that, in my opinion, everybody interested in law of assumption, law of attraction concepts should read, because it links together the great teachings of Emile Coué, who is the most practical teacher of how affirmations and positive psychology and the placebo effect and positive expectancy work. It connects all that stuff with what you would call more spiritual manifestation language, law of assumption language, Neville type language, Joseph Murphy type language. Christianity and Autosuggestion is one of the best books ever written when it comes to these topics, these manifestation topics. It really is. And what it's going to show you is that the way people are treating their affirmations or how they talk to themselves is usually very limiting. It's a self-imposed limitation that does not need to be there. I always like to tell clients that, listen, you can talk to yourself however the heck you want. The key is that you're sincere about what you're saying. So I really recommend reading this book, Christianity and Autosuggestion. We have made several videos on this channel. You can check those out if for some reason you don't like reading books, but I suggest reading. Let me read to you this quote. This is going, if you understand this, and I'm sorry, we're just jumping right into it. If you understand this passage and the passage I'm going to maybe read after this, you are going to understand what really is the important thing when it comes to what we affirm or what we're consciously auto-suggesting to ourselves. All right, so the authors write, autosuggestion should be as general, as undefined as possible. Okay, that's the first thing. It's like, whoa. You hear a lot of people be like, oh, be specific, be specific. This just says you don't need that at all. It actually should be undefined a lot of the time. In its best form, it should be an upward motion of the mind, fixing its attention on a goal universally approved, not spending its energy in personal likes and dislikes in pursuing momentary egotistical desires. Oof. Again, subtly, guys, this is taking apart all this stuff we hear about affirmations. About, oh, you should be very specific. You should want a certain thing. You have to know exactly what you want. It can be small. You can be affirming for that cup of coffee. I'm not saying any of that stuff is wrong to do, but it's usually shallow. Okay? This advice is going to get you deep. And when we get deep, we get better results, generally speaking. Is not the affinity obvious between this conception of autosuggestion, and for those of you new here, autosuggestion is just another word for affirmation, right? Is not the affinity obvious between this conception of autosuggestion and the rule which confines prayer to such matters as are concordant with the divine character? If God is goodness, a motion towards goodness is a motion towards him. So that's kind of the spirit of affirmations or autosuggestion that Brooks and Charles, the authors of Christianity and Autosuggestion, are suggesting. They go on to write, this is the key paragraph. This is one of the great paragraphs in law of attraction, law of assumption literature. Autosuggestion has sometimes been called praying to oneself. So it is, but it is prayer to a deeper, truer self, to what Coué calls the power within. In our view, that power within is God, whether we recognize the fact or not. God permits us to use his power even when we deny that it is his power. Just as a flower thrives in the sun without knowing the source of its vitality. And so, when we formulate autosuggestions, we are praying to God under the impression that we are appealing to some power of our own mind. It is sometimes said that according to the new psychology, religion is nothing more than autosuggestion. We would reply that autosuggestion is nothing more than religion unaware of itself. Prayer, we submit, is an appeal, not to the God of some faraway heaven, but to God in our own hearts. And as such, it is indistinguishable from normal autosuggestion, except in one inestimably vital respect, the recognition of divine agency. Oof. I don't know how many of you got that, but if you got that, you understand affirmations and autosuggestion and what it's really pointing at. You see, Coué was an amazing teacher and healer, and he literally helped tens of thousands of people heal themselves. Was a lot more successful than any of the popular law of attraction or law of assumption teachers we hear about today, because he showed people the power they had within themselves, imaginatively, you might say, by using their imagination with confidence and repeating that what they wanted to happen was going to happen. He very intentionally did not use much or any religious or spiritual language in describing this process, and he got better results than any of the more religious or spiritual sounding manifestation teachers that generally are the people that talk about this stuff. Usually there's a lot of spiritual language being used when we hear about manifestation, law of assumption, law of attraction. A lot of talk of God. Coué intentionally took that out of the equation. But what Brooks and Charles are explaining here is that what Coué was actually doing, of course, was the very heart of functional spirituality. It was highly spiritual. So the power within is really God's power. Your imagination is God, to paraphrase Neville. Your imagination, harnessing the power of your imagination, is God in action. God healing you. God moving you upward, if you want to use that language. What's amazing in this book is that Brooks and Charles strip down all this, very confusing, esoteric, religious, metaphysical language, and they make it clear that what Coué was talking about is the very definition of spiritual psychology. That paragraph is just unbelievably good. I'm gonna read it again. Autosuggestion has sometimes been called praying to oneself. In other words, we're acknowledging our own power, right? And so traditionally, I guess you could look at it being like, well, this has nothing to do with God, right? But of course that's not true. That's what they're pointing at here. It is really prayer. When we're really auto-suggesting to ourselves, affirming to ourselves, it's prayer to a deeper, truer self. So I am getting better and better. It's not really just me, I, shallow, egotistical Tim. It's like, no, I, my great self, my great imagination, my whole being is getting better and better. What Coué calls the power within is really God. It's just we don't have to use all this spiritual mumbo jumbo to describe God. We can actually describe it in this very just psychologically down-to-earth way. That's what Coué did better than anybody. In our view, that power within is God, whether we recognize the fact or not. In other words, we might be thinking it's me doing this. This has nothing to do with God. But really, it's God the whole time. God permits us to use his power even when we deny that it is his power. just as a flower thrives in the sun without knowing the source of its vitality. And so when we formulate autosuggestions, we are praying to God under the impression that we are appealing to some power of our own mind. When we're affirming, we're thinking, oh, this is me, and really it's God the whole time. It is sometimes said that according to the new psychology, religion is nothing more than autosuggestion. We would reply that autosuggestion is nothing more than religion unaware of itself. So many people who met Coué were basically like, this guy's the most Christ-like figure I've ever met. Yet he wasn't using all this religious language. Why is that, guys? It's because he got the essence of what a lot of this religious language is pointing to. And that is what Brooks and Charles talk about so brilliantly in Christianity and autosuggestion. And really are going to make clear to you if you read this book and study it. So your affirmations are really, it's you being spiritual and being sincere and using that power that is within you, but is obviously a part of God, one with God, and utilizing it. So you can say whatever you want. It can be religious sounding, it can be secular sounding, whatever, as long as it's connecting to that deeper imaginative part of you, that power within you, to paraphrase Coué. Prayer, we submit, is an appeal, not to the God of some faraway heaven, but to God in our own hearts. And as such, it is indistinguishable from normal autosuggestion, except in one inestimably vital respect, the recognition of divine agency. So in other words, we can say every day in every way I'm getting better and better. We can have an affirmation like that has seemingly nothing to do with God. But if you recognize it has to do with God, it's going to make it even more powerful and gratifying. Maybe much, much, much more powerful and gratifying. These guys conclude this chapter by quoting from Dr. Horton, who wrote this book called The Mystical Quest of Christ. Horton wrote, "Prayer, our daily prayer, whether at set times or ejaculatory, should be, in effect, the constant autosuggestion of Christ's presence and Christ's sufficiency, and the assertion of faith that we can be like him and are by his grace the indwelling of his spirit, becoming like him." This is the connection, guys, between all this great New Thought teachings, teachings like Neville, Emmett Fox, Emile Coué, people like that with Coué, and the stripped down, just practical psychology. This is the connection. And I don't even know if I'm describing it right, but honestly, there's no one else describing it at all. There's nobody else on YouTube just even talking about this book. We start where others end. This is the real stuff. This is why, if you're serious about using, affirmations or some kind of conscious autosuggestion, and you've never spoken to me before, I offer free consultations just to speak to you about stuff like this. Because once you get it, you can't look away and say, oh, it's this more simple, da-da-da. No, there's more depth to it, and it makes more sense when you understand it from this perspective that Brooks and Charles talk about in Christianity and autosuggestion. And when you start really interpreting and trying to integrate in whatever small way or big way we can Coué's ideas. Later on in the book, they're writing again about different things you can say, because you can say any number of autosuggestions, and if you are more spiritual, you can say something like, "Thy will is my welfare." That can be your affirmation. Or God is supply, or God supplies all my needs. These are examples of affirmations or conscious autosuggestions you can make if you are more religiously or spiritually inclined and like using that language. And again, we do not have to use that spiritual language. The point is we can use whatever language we want. It's the underlying point that Brooks and Charles just went over that's so important, not the actual words we say. So again, here they talk about how Horton tells us the idea of Christ permeates the unconscious or the imagination, because unconscious and imagination are synonymous terms as far as Coué was concerned for practical purposes. So Christ permeates the imagination and works through mind and will as vital force works through bodily processes, and, quote, sets in motion power which resists temptation, stimulates to good actions, restrains from evil, end quote. Brooks and Charleston write this brilliant point. We see then that the choice of a religious formula for an affirmation or an autosuggestion admits of almost infinite variety. We are free to choose any formula from the simple phrase of Coué, prefaced by a short prayer, to an expression of the holiest and deepest yearning to share in the nature and spirit of Christ. How are we to be guided in our choice? We must remember that the formula is a prayer in the structure of which faith is organically expressed. And since this is so, we can and must expect a response, for by rightly seeking we shall find. But the certainty of a response depends upon one condition. We must be absolutely sincere. So that's deep, the deep stuff, guys, when it comes to affirmations and autosuggestion. It doesn't matter what you say, it's what you mean as when you're saying it. And we can say something robotically, hypnotically, but the point is that statement should resonate with us when we think of it. And then we can just say it hypnotically and not judging it, just say it the way Coué talks about, not using effort to say it when we're actually doing the method, when we're actually praying or auto-suggesting in this way. But the point is, what you are seeking, you must be genuine about. The certainty of a response depends upon one condition. We must be absolutely sincere. We must be absolutely sincere. And circling all the way back, this is why Coué's general phrase, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better, is such a wonderful phrase, because it's very easy to get behind that statement for a lot of us. Very easy to be sincere about that. Of course I want to get better, not just for myself, but for everybody. So this was a deep video. We covered some interesting stuff here. I hope you got some value from it. This is when we get serious about what conscious autosuggestion actually means, what prayer actually means, what technique actually means. If you have questions, like I said, you know where to reach me. Link is in the description if you want to talk to me. Enjoy.